Somewhere in this country right now, there is a man standing on his own land looking up at a gray sky, waiting for it to rain. And when that rain finally comes and runs off his own roof, into his own barrel on his own property, he will have broken the law. Not a small law, not a forgotten one. A law that is still on the books, still enforced, still defended in court by men in suits who have never once gone thirsty. I want you to sit with that for a moment. The water that falls from the sky onto the house you paid for, on the land you hold the deed to in some states, that water was never yours. It belonged to someone else before the first drop ever left the cloud. After my last video, a great many of you wrote to me and said the same thing in different words. You said, Amos, I am ready. I am ready to pull the cord, to dig the well, to catch the rain, to warm my own house and answer to no one. And then almost every one of you asked the same quiet question. You asked, am I even allowed to? So I went looking. I spent weeks with statutes and county codes and old court rulings, the kind of dry paper most men never read. And what I found troubled me more than I expected. Because in a free country in the year we are living in, there are states where the oldest skills of all, catching your own water, putting your own waste back into the ground, unhooking from a wire you never asked for, have quietly been made illegal. Not banned with a loud announcement. Banned with a permit office, a fee schedule, and a clause on page 40. So today I am going to walk you through the 10 worst states in this country to live free and off the grid. We are going to count them down from bad to worst. And before this is over, I am going to show you a court ruling from 1882. Yes, the 1800s, that decided before your grandfather's grandfather was born that the rain on your roof would never belong to you. Stay with me. You need to hear this. Now, before I name a single state, let me tell you what I mean by off-grid, because the men in the permit offices have made that word slippery on purpose. Off-grid does not mean lawless. It does not mean a shack in the woods with no rules. It means 3 simple things our people have done for 300 years. It means you can collect the water that falls on your land. It means you can deal with your own waste cleanly and safely without a pipe to a distant plant. And it means you can power and heat your home, or choose not to, without a company forcing a meter onto your wall. Water, waste, power. That is the whole of it. And in the states I am about to name, at least one of those 3, sometimes all 3, has been taken from you by law. Let us begin. Number 10, Connecticut. I start here because Connecticut is the quiet kind of hard. There is no single dramatic ban you can point to. Instead, there is the slow squeeze of a small, crowded, expensive state where the land has all been spoken for, and the rules assume you will hook into everything. In most of its towns, if a public sewer line runs past your property, you are required to connect to it, and to pay for the privilege whether you want it or not. Septic systems face some of the steepest engineering and inspection demands in the country. Minimum lot sizes, wetland setbacks, health district sign-offs, each one reasonable on its own, all of them together a wall. You will not be dragged off your land in Connecticut. You will simply be quoted a number so large for permission to live simply that most men give up before they begin. That is a ban, too. It just wears a nicer coat. Number 9, New Jersey. New Jersey is Connecticut with more people and less patience. It is one of the most densely settled states in the Union, and its rules reflect a single assumption baked into every code, that no one would ever truly want to be self-sufficient. Mandatory utility hookups in developed areas. Strict, costly septic approvals. Zoning that in many municipalities does not even contain a category for the life you want to live, and what the code has no word for, the code does not allow. I spoke to the idea of a man wanting to raise his family on 5 quiet acres, off the wire, catching his rain. In much of New Jersey, the honest answer from the zoning board is not no. It is, there is no form for that, and so it cannot be done. Number 8, Rhode Island. The smallest state, and a hard one for the same reason as its neighbors, only more concentrated. Little land, high cost, and a thick web of state and municipal codes layered one on top of another. Connection to public sewer and water is the default expectation, and stepping outside it means a gauntlet of approvals. When a state is this small, there is no remote corner to disappear into, no county 40 miles out where no one checks. Every acre is watched. For the man who wants room to breathe and rules that leave him alone, Rhode Island simply has neither to spare. Number 7. Indiana. Now we move inland and the trouble changes its shape. Indiana has space, good, open farmland. But it has also become known for aggressive local enforcement of building and occupancy codes, especially the rule that a dwelling must be connected to an approved sewage system, and in many places, to electrical service to be ruled fit to live in. There have been homeowners told their paid-for houses were legally uninhabitable, not because anything was wrong inside, but because they had chosen to live without the standard hookups. Think about that. The house keeps you warm and dry, your family is safe inside it, and a man with a clipboard declares it unlivable because you are too self-sufficient. The land is open in Indiana. It is the code enforcement that closes in. Number 6. New York. People hear New York and think of the city, but the state runs for hundreds of miles of farm and forest. The trouble is that the rules written with dense places in mind get applied to the wide-open ones. New York enforces a strict statewide building code with real teeth, and in much of the state, a home must tie into approved water, septic, and often electric to be considered legal to occupy. Upstate, where land is cheap and a man could truly stretch out, the permit and inspection regime follows him anyway. You can buy the acres. Living on them the old way is the part they make hard. And the further you get from the city, the more it stings, because you can see the freedom right there and a code book standing between you and it. Number 5. Washington. Here is where the water troubles begin in earnest, and here is your first warning that the men who run the wires also believe they run the weather. For years, the official position in Washington was that the rainwater falling on your own roof was a public resource you could not simply claim. Collecting it could be treated as interfering with established water rights downstream. They have since loosened that, and today rooftop collection is generally allowed. But hold on to the principle because it does not go away, it just moves to the next state on this list. And Washington still wraps the rest of off-grid life in heavy county building codes and septic rules that make the simple, legal path anything but cheap. They gave the rain back. They kept everything else. Number 4. Nevada. Nevada is dry, brutally dry, which makes what they did with the rain all the more telling. For most of its history, under the iron logic of Western water law, capturing the rain or snowmelt on your own property in Nevada could put you crossways with the state, because every drop was considered already promised to someone with an older claim downstream. In the driest state in the country, the law told a man he could not catch the little water the sky gave him. They finally passed a bill a few years back to allow small-scale collection for home use, a grudging permission, hedged with limits, but sit with the mind behind it. In a desert, the instinct of the law was not to help a man gather water. It was to stop him. That instinct is the disease. The recent bill only treats one symptom. Number 3. Utah. And here the thing stops being a principle and becomes a story you can hardly believe. Until the year 2010, it was, in plain terms, illegal in Utah to collect the rainwater that fell on your own roof without it being claimed under someone else's water right. A man could be cited for putting a barrel under his own downspout. In 2010, the state finally passed a law to allow it, but even then, you were asked to register your collection with the state, and you were capped on how much of the sky's free gift you were permitted to keep. Let me say that again so it lands. Within the lifetime of your own children, a family in Utah had to ask the government for permission and register to catch rain in a bucket. That is not the frontier spirit that built the West. That is the opposite of it, written into law. Number 2. Oregon. I have saved 2 states for the end, and Oregon earns its place with a name and a face. There was a man in southern Oregon named Gary Harrington. On his own rural property over many years, he collected rainwater and snowmelt in 3 large reservoirs ponds in plain speech. The state told him that water was not his. It belonged by law to the public and to the prior claims downstream, and by damming it on his own land he was, in the eyes of the state, stealing it. He fought. He lost. And in the year 2012, Gary Harrington went to jail, roughly 30 days behind bars, for the crime of collecting rain and snow on his own ground. A man in America in our own time jailed for catching the rain. Oregon has since softened some of its rules, and the case became a rallying cry. But the cell was real. The 30 days were real. Remember his name when someone tells you the right to your own rain was never in danger. And now, number 1. The worst state in the union for living free and off the grid, Colorado. I put Colorado at the top not because its rules today are the single harshest. Several have eased a little. But because Colorado is where the whole idea was born, where it runs the deepest, and where it was carved into the bones of the law earliest and hardest. In Colorado, water follows a doctrine called prior appropriation. In plain words, the water does not belong to the land it falls on or flows past. It belongs to whoever first claimed the right to use it, generations ago, and that claim runs downstream for 100 miles. Under that doctrine, the rain that falls on your roof, the snow that melts off your field, is not yours. It is already promised, already owned, already spoken for before it ever touches your property. For most of Colorado's history, collecting rooftop rainwater was simply not permitted for the ordinary homeowner. It was not until 2016, that the state passed a law allowing a household to keep a grand total of 2 barrels. 110 gallons and not a drop more of the water the sky drops for free onto a home you own outright. And here, as I promised you at the very start, is the buried document. None of this began in our lifetime. It was decided in 1882 by the Colorado Supreme Court in a case called Coffin versus Left Hand Ditch Company. That ruling locked prior appropriation into the law of the West and declared, in effect, that the water was never tied to your land, that someone else's older claim came first, even to the rain. 1882. Before the automobile, before the light bulb was in most homes. Men you will never know, in a courtroom you will never see, decided that the rain on your roof, in the year you are living in now, would belong to a stranger. And it still does. Now let me be honest with you, the way I always am, because the breathless videos will not be. Several of these states have loosened their grip in recent years. Colorado allows its 2 barrels now. Utah, Nevada, Washington, each has passed something to let a homeowner catch a little rain. So no, it is not true that you will be hauled to prison everywhere on this list for a rain barrel today. I will not tell you that because it is not so. But do not mistake a loosened grip for an open hand. The principle underneath has not changed at all. The principle that the water, the waste, the very heat of your home are matters for the state to permit, and not for you to simply do. The 2-barrel limit is still a limit. The registration is still a registration. The mandatory hookup, the septic engineering, the zoning that has no word for self-reliance, all of that is still standing in every state I named, waiting. They did not give freedom back. They rented a little of it back to you, with conditions, and they kept the deed. And that in the end is the whole point of this. The men who built this country did not ask permission to catch the rain. They did not register a barrel. They did not file for a variance to keep themselves warm. They simply did the work on their own land with their own hands and answered to God and the weather and no one else. Somewhere along the way that was taken, not lost, taken quietly, a permit at a time, until a man could go to jail for a pond full of snowmelt, and most people never even heard about it. You have heard about it now. So tell me, What state are you in, and which of these three, your water, your waste, or your power, has been hardest to keep for yourself? Put it in the comments. Be specific. Name your county if you are willing. I read every single one because there is a map being drawn in those comments that no agency will ever publish. A map of where in this country a man can still live free and where he cannot. And if you are the kind of person who believes that the oldest freedoms have been quietly fenced off to make room for someone else's meter and someone else's fee, then you already know what to do. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Because next time I am going to show you the states where it is still easy, the handful of places where a man can still catch his rain, dig his well, unhook his wire, and the law simply leaves him be. There are more of them than you would think. And there is one in particular that almost no one talks about, where the old way is not just allowed, but do the work, hold your ground, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.